So there I was after a youth activity Sunday night. Came home. Been a long day. I'd preached that morning, delivered a sermon that morning, then all day studied at the office because I had to preach that Sunday night as well. So I got to the office probably about 6:30 in the morning to prepare for the Sunday morning sermon in class. Preached, spent the day with the youth group, then studied during the day. Then that night I had to preach. And then after that I had a teen devotional. And then shortly after that teen devotional, I had to wait for parents to pick their kids up. And then after that I had to take care of something at the office. So I got home at about 10:30 or so. Pulled up in the driveway, noticed the lights were out, came inside and saw that my kids were asleep. My wife was asleep, and I had gotten up before they were up, and I had gotten home before they could see me. So that whole day, on the Lord's Day, aside from sitting next to each other on the pew, I did not spend time with my family. And that's not a typical day in youth ministry at all. I don't want to pretend like that happens all the time, but it does happen. And so youth ministers, I'm starting this new web channel. Instead of a minute, I'm calling it Youth Ministry 6.3, and it comes from Nehemiah 6 verse 3, where Nehemiah, in front of Sanballat and Tobiah, who are trying to get him to come down from the wall, from building the wall, from being successful, Nehemiah says this. He says, "I am doing a great work and I cannot come down." Youth ministry is a calling, and those of us who do it, we don't do it for the money, that's for sure. We don't do it for the fame and for the notoriety or whatever. We do it because we feel that we're called to do it. We do it because we believe in the power of the gospel to change the lives of teenagers. Not us, but the power of Christ. And so this first edition is about family. It's not only about our family, but it's about the family that we serve. And so reading Doug Fields' Purpose-Driven Youth Ministry book, he talks about blocking schedules and making sure that his wife Kathy was a part of his youth ministry schedule. And youth ministers, if you have a wife, if you have kids, make sure that they are involved in your schedule. That before each week, before each month, whatever, that they have a say in your schedule, because you owe them. You owe them. I have a set of priorities. Here we go. I'll just rip it off this drawer here. I have what's called Robbie's priorities here. And I don't know if you can see it that well, but these are priorities I have all over the office. And of course, to have a relationship with God is up there, but look at number 2. I don't know if you can see it that well. Number 2 says to have a relationship with my wife that is God-honoring and causes her to grow closer to Him. Number 3, to create an authentic family in which my children love God and love each other. Number 4, to be a servant of the church that is directed towards God. To foster relationships in a church supposed to be that are authentic and does not take away from the top 3 priorities. And then number 6, to treat my body in a way that will allow me to be in service to God for the maximum amount of time. I fail at number 6 often. Having said that, family is what's important to me. That is my chief. If I'm failing with my wife, if I'm failing my kids, and you better believe that my ministry is going to be failing as well. What good is it if we pour hours into teenagers' lives, but we do not do the same for our wife and our children? What good is it if we dedicate months of planning to ministries and we do none of that for our own family? Quick survey of the Old Testament, especially Deuteronomy chapter 6. You will notice what's called the Shema Yisrael, or the Shema as it's called. And what that is, it's the Hebrew word Shema there is about hearing. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And that was the you might say, the epic center of the Hebrew Scriptures. That is the for monotheistic religion, that is the starting point. But that was not the only point. If you jump down to chapter 6 and verse 7, you will see that they were to teach these words of Torah, the laws, the Shema Yisrael. They were to teach these to their children. They were to bind them on their children. Even you go on further, they were to write them on the frontlets. And so this was a dedication of every Hebrew. And so education was foremost in Hebrew tradition. And so they would mandate these things on their children. Now, that sounds oppressive, but how often, youth ministers, do we spend time studying with our wives, studying with our children? That is our first goal, is to feed our families, to feed them. Because if we are not feeding ourselves, then we can't feed the church. If we're not feeding our families, then we're not feeding the church properly. Men and women, our job is to serve our husbands, to serve our wives, and to serve our children. Because if our children grow up to resent God, it's probably our fault. It's probably our fault. Not always, but probably our fault. And so I want my children to grow up loving God and loving the church. I don't ever want my child to say this. I know there will be times that this will happen. I get that. I know there will be times this will happen where my children will come and say, Dad, I don't want to go to church services. I'm tired of it. And I get that. But if this happens for a long period of time, then there's probably a history there, a history of bad experiences. Now I understand these experiences are, they're hard to avoid. But if we serve a church that fosters family-oriented ministry, then that church will grow leaps and bounds. Why? Because our families are growing leaps and bounds. I think we need to take the Shema Yisrael approach seriously, where we advocate teaching our children the gospel and teaching each other the gospel. Friends, I hope this has encouraged you. I hope this strengthens you. But my hope is that you will take a day off and go and be with your wife. Take a week off and go and be with her on a vacation. Take some time off and go eat lunch with your own child. Take some time off and go to that play that your child's in, that game. And you know what? Turn the phone off. Don't feel bad about it. It's okay. Feel free to just allow yourself to be completely whole with your family. I used to feel bad about not answering the phone, about not answering text messages or emails or all that. Now I kind of like it. I like not having to have my phone be the Lord over me. I like the ability to turn it off, to not answer a text message. And you know what? Perhaps your ministry will not be as effective because you won't be able to address every issue with teenagers and every single time. You're not going to be able to do that. But at some point, like Andy Stanley says, you're going to have to choose where you cheat. Now, I'm not saying cheating in a bad sense, but you're going to have to choose where you want to spend your most amount of time. You add value where you're most valuable. If you're not valuable, if you're not adding value to your family, then that is not a valuable sort of mindset for you. And so I would say, men, go home. Go home. If your elders are upset at you for working because you're not working enough hours, and even though you're putting in 60 hours a week, and they say, you need to put more time in, quit the job. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. My first year of ministry here at Main Street, I averaged about 65 to 70 hours a week, and I almost gave up. I almost gave up. If we don't pay attention to ourselves, to our ministries, to our families, it could be costly. So go home, men. Be with your wives. Be with your children. Be with your mom. Be with your dad. Be with your brother, sister, whoever. Give them a call. Do whatever you can to be with your family. Hang in there. I love you guys. This is our first installment of Youth Ministry 6.3. More to come. Hang in there.